But before we start today, we're going to do something a little different with each episode of What's Your Next Podcast. We're going to start with a franchise myth or fact.
Ooh, fun.
Okay. So today's myth or fact is that you can actually go out directly and buy a franchise. Is that a myth or a fact?
Buy a franchise. Well, here's my $250,000 check. Can I do that?
That is a myth.
No, myth.
You are not able to directly go out and quote unquote buy a franchise. Franchises are awarded to those who qualify. So you cannot just stroke a check and buy a franchise.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of What's Your Next? Dave and Stacy Riska here, your franchise placement specialists. And today, Dave's going to lead us on a journey about real estate franchises.
On today's episode, as I said, we're going to be talking about real estate, how to build a real estate empire with franchising. And so we got some really cool concepts to talk about today that are types of real estate franchises. Before we get into the types of real estate franchises, really quickly, I want to talk a little bit about what I found. We work with over 500 franchises, and I did a search of those 500 franchises. I was shocked. 89 of those are in the real estate industry.
That's a lot.
89. To give you an idea of the breadth and the depth of the type of franchises that are out there today that revolve around real estate. Now, not all of these are traditional real estate types of franchises. A lot of these are probably services around the real estate business, like maybe handyman, repairs, or plumbing, or electricians, those types of things. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about owning and operating real estate and the three types of franchises that are directly in the real estate industry. So the first type of franchise we're going to talk about today is residential assisted living. New concept, great idea. Can't wait to share it with you. The second one is a little bit more traditional. It's property management. We are all familiar with property management. I'm very familiar with property management. Believe me, I've had my ups and downs with property management. And then the third type of real estate franchise is the traditional real estate brokerage and or agency type of franchise. And I found franchises in our system for all three of those. First, we're going to start with residential assisted living. This is a really cool concept. I'm really excited about this one because really what it is a hybrid of owning a piece of real estate and senior care. You talk about two great industries being put together. And the concept is that someone would go out and take a residential property, split it up into 10 to 16 rooms, depending on the size of the property, and provide senior care to seniors that aren't at the point of wanting to go into a nursing home. They're mostly independent, but need some type of care and don't necessarily want to go into the quote unquote nursing home. So that's residential assisted living. Very cool concept. Lots of cash flow opportunities there because it's a hybrid of really two businesses. So now to talk a little bit about the pros and the cons of this type of a franchise. As I said, the very first one, I think, is that there's such a great cash flow opportunity here because there's really more than one business. There's really three different revenue streams. And interestingly enough, and in talking with some people in this business, they've generated multiple other types of revenue streams that you wouldn't even think about. So there's really more than three.
Tripled? Like first money, then money?
Dave, I would think that, if you look at the trends, we're dealing in a silver tsunami, right? So is this a hot franchise concept to look at?
Yeah, we're coming to the silver tsunami, Stacy. That's definitely a pro in this particular model. We're also going to talk about the model follows somewhat the traditional franchise concepts that we saw early in the franchising world, such as McDonald's. If you know the McDonald's story, McDonald's was a hamburger shack, but they became a real estate business, right? Did they not? They are one of the biggest real estate holders in the United States. And they knew that if they could operate a hamburger stand, and pay the rents, that they got two benefits from the same exact business. This is what residential assisted living is all about. There's actually 3 revenue streams in this one, and even more if you want to expand your services. So very interesting concept. And then, as Stacy said, the silver tsunami. I mean, come on. I don't know if you're familiar with the silver tsunami. There are, 75 million people in this country that are going to turn some age in the next 10 years. All right, so
It's a lot of zeros.
Yeah. So the statistic is 10,000 seniors a day are turning 75 years or more by 2025. 10,000 a day are going to be more than 75. The silver tsunami is here. So the demographics favor this industry greatly. And then one of the nice things about this opportunity is that there's a lot of placement services out there today. And I looked around at some of them, and they actually help seniors try to find facilities like this. There's such a shortage of good senior care out there that in a lot of cases, placement becomes almost a second kind of, not even an issue for the operators, because they've got more people banging on their door to get the seniors in there than they got rooms available. So again, it's all tied into the demographics and the growth. Those are some of the benefits or the pros of the residential assisted living concept. One of the cons, I would say, or one of the downsides, is it's going to require a larger investment probably than your typical real estate investment, your fix and flip and or your just rental, your long-term rental type of property, because you need to fix these properties up to meet very specific standards and rules and regulations for providing senior care. And those can vary state to state significantly.
Have very high standards.
Another kind of issue that is probably going to occur because of the silver tsunami is, as these folks get older, it's unfortunate, but some of them are going to pass away. Some of them are going to want to be moved into, or some of them are going to have to be moved into a full service nursing home at some point, which means you lose a bed and they gain one. So there's going to be a higher turnover in this particular model. Really as a whole, the biggest thing that I found in doing some research on this model is that there's a lot of rules and regulations out there regarding this. There's health, there's ADA compliance, there's various local, state and federal laws that you have to deal with. The big thing about residential assisted living that I found is that there are a lot of people out there doing it on their own, which is a great concept. And if you have the resources and the knowledge to do that, the question is, do you want to? When you can go and find a package or a franchise where they're providing a lot of these ancillary services to you as part of the franchise, right? That's the whole point of a franchise, is they have a working model that you can follow that helps you and relieve some of these excessive burdens that can exist, particularly in this one. Great opportunities here. I don't even want to talk about the cash flow opportunities because they're just not even fair, in some cases. But I also don't want to overstate or understate anything here, because it is definitely, it's like 3 businesses in one. And you're going to be operating a real estate business, you're going to be operating a senior care, and you're going to be operating other services within that. So it really is a great model for somebody who is, likes real estate, likes rental, and has the wherewithal to be able to run and provide senior care as part of a residential property.
Exciting.
All right, it's very exciting. All right, the next real estate type of franchise is a little less exciting, but very lucrative, and that is property management. Mm-hmm. Property management has been around for a very, very long time. We had multiple franchises in our system that provide property management services. Great property management services, I should say, that would be of great need to many people. One of the biggest pros or two of the biggest pros, I'll start with the first one, is that property management is somewhat recession resistant.
Nice.
Yeah. As is residential assisted living probably, right? People are still getting older. They still need care. This one, people still got to pay the rent, right? They still got to live somewhere. So it's very recession resistant. The second one is that it requires a minimal capital investment. You're not buying real estate in this case. You're not owning and operating real estate. You're helping others manage real estate. That's it, right? And there's a lot of great franchises out there that provide packages that make that very easy for you to get started quickly and with not a large capital investment. So property management provides some unique opportunities. So a third lucrative point of property management is that it's an ongoing revenue stream, right? It's like rents at times, however many properties you manage. I mean, generally, most property managers charge 8 to 12%, somewhere in that range, some more, some less. I've seen it all over the place depending on what they provide. But every month that you're getting paid as a landlord, they're getting paid to help you manage that property. So it's a very, again, recession-resistant business for you, but very lucrative as far as recurring revenues. You know, some of the downsides to property management are that if you're a property manager, it's a tough business. I mean, it's tough. You're dealing with landlords, okay, and you're dealing with renters. So there's a lot of emotion between those two, believe me. Sometimes I'm a landlord, okay? I get the phone call. You know, I had one this year, a freaking tree fell and ripped the wire out of a home that I rent out. I'm like, well, you know, why are you calling me? But okay, yeah, fix it, because what else, you know, I'm going to leave the renter without electricity, you know. But, you know, they knew I wasn't happy, right? You know, they knew I was like, gosh, you know, like this really, I hate when this happens, right? Nothing I did wrong, but all of a sudden I got this big bill because a tree fell and ripped the wires out of a house.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, it totally sucks.
And the other side of that is the renters, okay? The renters can be very difficult and can provide a lot of headache, particularly when it comes to social media. They are very vocal, right? If they were to get evicted from a property for not paying, they don't blame it on themselves. You know, they blame it on the landlord, whatever the reason happens to be. Because they didn't get a paycheck, it was the landlord's fault that the stove didn't work and they had to, you know, because they didn't have a stove, they didn't want to pay the rent. You know, like they always find some way. And these translate into, unfortunately, not great social reviews sometimes. So you have to be really on top of your social media to make sure that you're following up and probably paying some damage control there. And a couple more, you know, I would consider, one's a pro and a con, and that's repairs. As the property manager, you don't necessarily have to provide the repairs, but you have to coordinate them in most cases. You are the one that gets the call from the tenant, and you have to have either a service yourself, which can be a pro, right? You could have your own maintenance staff that's providing maintenance services as a revenue source if you have those capabilities, or you source those out, and sometimes you'll get referral fees for maybe some of the other types of real estate services out there, like electricians and plumbers and stuff like that. So that's kind of a pro and a con. And then the tougher one, I think, is that, again, it's almost like senior care. You know, every municipality has their own rules and regulations regarding rental. You know, I mean, some the eviction laws are very different than, you know, in Maryland than in, you know, Wyoming. And so it's really, you know, very different in different parts of the country due to the different because of the different municipalities and the different rules and regulations that can be involved in just the territory you might service as a property. Those are some of the pros and cons of property management. Again, it's still a really good and lucrative business. Can have many multiple revenue streams, just like residential assisted living. Could snap on maintenance services. I've worked with one where they had their own construction company, you know, which was a pro and a con, I thought, for them. You know, there's just ways that you can leverage and make that business into multiple businesses if you really want, with multiple streams of revenue. The final type of real estate franchise that I think everybody knows or thinks about when you talk about real estate is the broker or the real estate agent, right? I mean,
yeah, I find it interesting, actually, Dave, that I believe in the first two concepts, you don't have to be a realtor to get into this real estate franchise. Is that right?
That is absolutely correct. Now, I will tell you that my experience is that most of them are, or some type, they do hold a real estate license. Some of them actually do sell real estate. They do because, again, they have landlords who want to flip a property. They want to get rid of it. So they want to be able to be involved in the transaction. A lot of times they can provide a buyer without even, you know, having to go out and put it on the open market, because they have all these other investors that have properties. They're always looking for new properties, right? So many of them are, but it's not a requirement. You don't, to be in property management, to own a residential assisted living facility, neither one of those require a real estate license.
Yeah, that's cool.
However, the third one, which is the broker and or / agency, that's a little different. It's been around for a very long time. Everybody's probably familiar with it. This is where you engage a real estate agent to help you either buy a property or sell a property, right? We've all most of us been through that transaction and paid the fees involved and kind of understand how that works, right? The real estate agent doesn't charge a buyer to go out and help them buy a property. They do charge the seller when a property is sold. That's the general model that's been out there for years. Pros and the cons of this are in ways similar to that of property management. And in many cases, a lot of times these two overlap. What you find is you have a lot of property managers that sell real estate, and you have a lot of real estate agents who manage properties. That's what I've seen anyway. The concept allows you to have multiple sources of revenue, which is the same as property management, which is the same as residential assisted living. I guess that's the good thing about real estate in some ways, is that you're not just locked into the real estate all the time. It's also very inexpensive and very quick to get started with, other than getting your proper licensing and through the real estate training and licensing. You can be up and operating without a large investment and a large time constraint as far as how long it takes you to be up and operating, right? And today, the cool thing about it is that a lot of the agencies are virtual. They don't even have really an office. Their agents work from their homes and they just provide the training, they provide the technology and some of the support of a traditional brokerage or real estate agency without all the headaches of even owning necessarily or having a big office space like we used to see in the past, right? So that's some changes that have occurred in that industry with the advent of technology. So a third benefit, particularly of the franchise brokerage or real estate agency, is that, again, they're providing the system to you. They're providing the technology. They're providing, all the contracts, all the legal, all the support that if you tried to go out and do it on your own, you'd spend a lot of time trying to put all that together in a package to become your own broker or agency, right? So they provide this. And in a way, franchises are almost becoming like a disruptor in this industry to the traditional brokerage / agencies that we've seen for many years, right? It was very difficult, and you didn't see that many of them back in the 80s. You had 7 of them or whatever, 10, maybe some regional ones. Today, the franchise route allows them to grow really quickly because they don't have the overhead of having to necessarily have office spaces everywhere, and they have the technology to be able to leverage it across an entire community of brokers and agents. They're almost like becoming a little bit of a disruptor in this industry. It really allows you as a franchisee to focus on the business side of it, right? Maybe you don't want to be directly involved in real estate. You just want to manage the agency, right? That's up to you. So some of the disadvantages of the real estate brokerage agency is that it's easy to get started, but in a lot of cases as an agent or a broker, it takes you a lot of time to build the reputation that you need for people to trust you. I mean, this is an old established industry with many people out there that have been in the industry for dozens of years. And if you're coming in new, it's going to have a disadvantage that you may be a part of a franchise that provides a great ongoing system and stuff like that to shorten that curve, but you still have to go through this kind of reputation stage that you find in the traditional real estate agency / brokerage business.
This is taking forever.
One of the biggest challenges of this industry that I've seen is that there's always ups and downs, right? It's always tied to the real estate economy itself. When the real estate is doing great, like today, in 2021, it's a party, right? You can't get houses fast enough to sell them. It's wonderful for real estate agents. If you've been through some of these cycles, you realize there's been some times where there's been massive weed outs and you couldn't even sell a property, much less get funding to somebody to buy a property because of the underlying economy and the real estate economy. So it's subject to a lot of booms and busts where the other models may not be as subject to that, right? It kind of makes sense. So it's got a little bit of advantages and disadvantages. The things that I always get concerned with, particularly today, although it's a benefit of a franchise, is that this is a long, old standing industry where they charge a pretty large amount of money for a real estate transaction.
Sure, it's a lot of money.
So it's somewhat subject to some disruption, right? We're starting to see a lot of different types of technologies. You got Zillow out there buying properties. You got really unique, real estate type operators out there. I heard one called Orchard.com where they'll buy your home for 90% of its value, fix it up, sell it for you, and if you whatever they make above 90%, you keep everything but the 6% real estate commission. So there's there's a lot of technology trying to infiltrate this industry and change that traditional brokerage/agency. I don't know if that's ever going to happen. I think people still like dealing with people personally. Overall, 3 great real estate concepts. Yeah. Any one of these, all 3 of these together, mixed together, you could build a real estate empire with, right?
Yeah, wow. All different. Very interesting.
Yeah, very different concepts, overlaps between them in many cases. And interestingly enough, the pros and cons are very different of each, right? Mm-hmm. So, when you're out there looking for real estate franchises, if that's what you're really interested in, keep an open mind. I had never heard of residential assisted living until I heard of this one new franchisor that came out, and I was like, wow, that's an interesting concept I've never heard of. So that's it for today. I just wanted to make sure that we gave you the opportunity to look at real estate franchises from a different angle. Stacy, would you like to wrap this up today?
Thanks, Dave. You really did a great job of laying the foundation, pun intended, of 3 great real estate franchise concepts that you can look at. Now, at this point, you probably have a lot of questions, and you may even be wondering, well, which of all of these real estate concepts would be the perfect one for me? I'm glad you asked. Dave and I, we're here to help you find the perfect franchise, and we do that through our own proprietary process, where we look at your skills, your interests, your resources, and most importantly, your passion to match you to that perfect franchise. So if you'd like to reach out to us for a free consultation, visit our website, nextlevelfranchisegroup.com. You can always contact us via phone, 240-388-9800. And on our website, you'll find some fun quizzes, interactive quizzes that will guide you through the process of learning more about yourself and how you can become a successful and profitable franchise owner. See you next time.